Welcome to another edition of Dad's Divorce Live. I'm Matt Allen, editor of DadsDivorce.com. The state of Ohio is being sued over claims that the state has overcollected more than $176 million in child support payments from more than 114,000 child support payers in violation of state statutes and federal regulations. Joining me to discuss the lawsuit and child support enforcement agencies is Mike McCormick, the executive director of American Coalition for Fathers and Children. His organization is dedicated to creating a family law system and public awareness that promotes equal rights for all parties affected by divorce. You can learn more by visiting the website acfc.org. Mike, thanks for joining me.
Matt, thanks for having me.
Now, first off, let's talk about this lawsuit. Could you inform our viewers about the large issues at play here, and how was Ohio allegedly over collecting these child support payments?
Sure. Let's just take a look at the first part of that question, the larger issues at play. And what we're seeing today around the country is that the child support enforcement agencies have at their disposal some very heavy-handed sanctions available for people who are not paying support. But what we're also finding is that oftentimes there are inconsistencies or inaccuracies within the record-keeping of these agencies that really shouldn't be there when you're dealing with things as sensitive as people's relationships with their children and correspondingly their finances as well. So we just, in looking at the situation in Ohio, we've seen that the Ohio system in particular doesn't seem to be working as well as it should for either low-income obligors who in Ohio are subject to incarceration without legal representation. And now, in the situation of this lawsuit, it's not working for people who are doing exactly what they were supposed to be doing, because it turns out that it certainly appears the state is taking more money that they are not entitled to, and then also concealing from the payer the fact that they are indeed taking excess funds. So it just appears that within the state of Ohio particularly, there's a problem from top to bottom within the spectrum of payers and the child support agency.
Now, the announcement of the lawsuit indicated that this problem was not unique to Ohio. Is this going on in other states?
We've seen problems in numerous states with respect to child support, and in fact, it's not just the problems that we're seeing. For instance, in Missouri, a review and an audit of the child support agency just a couple of years ago indicated that of the sampling of records that was taken for the audit, over 35% of them had errors of significance within the case files. And we see this actually throughout the country today. We're seeing these types of things happen all over the country, and the child support system has over 7.65 million payers within the system. We can't afford to continue to allow this to happen and happen incorrectly.
Now, if the plaintiffs are successful in this class action lawsuit against Ohio, what could the possible ramifications be for child support agencies, not only in Ohio, but across the nation?
Well, our goal, and I think the goal of the lawsuit is actually to say to the agencies, look, you have a fiduciary obligation to get it right. You don't get a pass on just, concealing bad behavior. The public needs to have confidence that an agency of government that impacts the lives of as many people that child support impacts is doing their job properly. Secondly, they need to know that when there's a problem, they are not going to be shuffled off to the side, or it will be dealt with on quote-unquote state time, which may be a matter of months or years down the road, but that there is a way to efficiently and effectively resolve these problems. The third thing that needs to happen in this case is that obligors and obligees need to know that the agencies are in addition to being responsive, are actually going to just get it right from the outset. And finally, what we want to see is we want to see the practice of incarcerating people for non-payment of support because they are poor ended. It just seems that we shouldn't be involved in debtor's prison in this country. The lawsuit doesn't deal with that particular issue. But as we indicated, there are problems up and down the spectrum within these agencies.
Right. These debtor prisons, courts continue to jail fathers across the nation who do not pay their child support, but in the vast majority of instances that we come across through our website and people submitting questions to us is that these fathers are not unwilling to pay, they're simply unable to pay. And I know your organization, the American Coalition for Fathers and Children, has launched a campaign to address this called Save the Turnips. Could you explain what is a turnip in this context and what are the goals of the Save the Turnips campaign?
Sure. The Save the Turnips campaign, and by the way, what we'd like to do is ask everybody to go to Facebook.com. The campaign is running through Facebook. Go to Facebook.com and go to Save the Turnips. And then just like the page and let us know your thoughts on what's going on. But turnips is the old expression, you can't get blood from a turnip. Everybody's heard that, but that's gone a bit further in child support enforcement. And the child support enforcement agencies commonly and euphemistically refer to child support obligors as turnips. And we had just recently seen that the National Child Support Enforcement Association was actually running training programs called Getting Blood from a Turnip, increasing new farming techniques to increase your yields. And that caused us a level of concern, given that the idea of dehumanizing and objectifying individuals leads to a callousness or in working with them. And these are people. These are not turnips. These are not crops to be farmed. These are, by and large, individuals that have been incarcerated for an inability to pay their child support. Their crime is being poor. So Save the Turnips is designed to raise awareness of the issue and lead to the release of incarcerated child support obligors whose only crime is inability to pay.
Now, the U.S. Supreme Court recently heard arguments in this case about jailing indigent child support obligors who didn't have legal representation. I don't believe they've issued their ruling yet. But what are your thoughts on that case? What do you expect them to rule?
Well, that was the Turner versus Price case. It was heard on March 23rd of this year, and you're right, there hasn't been a decision yet. There's really the question in that case was, should poor people have access to legal representation in court before they're locked up? We kind of think that's the wrong question to be asking, frankly. What we think the question to be asked and answered is, why are we locking up poor people to begin with, simply for being poor? Most of them are under or underemployed, and the government itself admits that. So, if we look at the entirety of the arrearage issue in this state, in the country, let's say, for example, the federal government reports indicate that over $108 billion in past child support is due. But the statistic you don't hear is that over two-thirds of the people that owe that money, and over two-thirds, over $70 billion of the amount that's owed, is owed by people who earn less than $10,000 a year. So we're talking about locking up people who can't pay child support, but who also are not earning enough income to even support their own life. And when you begin to look at the kind of problems that emanate from the child support agencies that can result in an individual being incarcerated, typically your incarcerated individual is underemployed or unemployed, may not be that highly educated, although with the current recession, we're seeing more and more people incarcerated who actually were formerly just came right out of the middle class. But to ask these people to go up against the unlimited resources of the state to prove that they should not be incarcerated without the assistance of counsel, we think is actually inappropriate. And we hope that the Supreme Court will say, yes, you need to provide counsel to indigents if the result of their hearing is, the potential result is incarceration.
Right. Well, Mike, thanks for your time, and thanks for your work as the Executive Director of the American Coalition for Fathers and Children.
You're welcome. We invite everybody to visit, again, the Save the Turnips campaign on Facebook, and certainly welcome to access the resources on our website at acfc.org also.
Great. That was Mike McCormick, the Executive Director of the American Coalition for Fathers and Children, and I'm Matt Allen, editor of DadsDivorce.com, and that'll do it for this edition of Dad's Divorce Live.